What is up, legends? Welcome back to the Academy. It's your boy Swifty, and today we're breaking into the Spartan Armory to completely rewrite how you play Styanax Prime in the big 2026. Look, let's be entirely for real for 1 second. If you look up Styanax build right now, 99% of the community is going to tell you to do the exact same thing. Slap on Helmet Nourish, put on some generic range mods and spam your fourth ability while floating slowly through the air like a giant glowing pinata. That is a basic low effort meta-slop, and today we're completely bypassing it. We're treating this frame like a highly sophisticated mathematical calculus engine. We have theory-crafted a multi-config modular blueprint that pushes Styanax to the absolute structural ceiling of 570 ability strength without sacrificing a single drop of utility or comfort. We aren't just building a one-trick pony here. We have engineered an unbreakable, self-sustaining resource chassis that functions entirely independent on your helmet slot. This allows you to hot swap between 5 completely distinct specialized combat loops, including a high-speed Gunframe weapon platform that completely alters his playstyle, a cascading chain reaction tire clearer, and a technical Hitbox exploit boss melter. Grab your notebooks, lock in your focus, and stop copying builds from people who don't read the underlying game code. Let's head to the whiteboard and break down the math. Before we talk about weapons or abilities, we have to fix Styanax's resource economy. If you run a max rank blind rage mod to hunt for massive damage numbers, your ability efficiency plummets to a painful 45%. Now, normally casting 100 energy ability like Final Stand under those conditions is completely unsustainable, forcing you to waste value mod slots on mods like Prime Flow, Streamline, or Equilibrium. We are solving this entire problem inside the Archon Shard architecture, leaving your main mod slots completely free for raw power scaling. First, we are starting in 2 tile-forged violet Archon Shards, configured for the equilibrium effect. This grants us a massive plus 60% energy conversion rate from Health Orbs because our Nautilus Prime companion is running Synth Deconstruct. Every single enemy tagged by our pet has a 25% chance to drop Health Orbs when they die. When you swap a crowd with Thorough Strike or shred them with the weapons, you generate an absolute sea of red orbs, keeping your energy pool completely overflowing at all times. Now, we addressed the animation lockouts. Styanax's native casting animation for his fourth ability keeps him floating in the air for far too long, turning him into an easy target for high-level tracking projectiles. To erase this vulnerability, we are running 2 tile-forged amber Archon Shards for a combined plus 25% casting speed. That's amazing. This completely changes its operational momentum. You can transition from a floating target into a rapid-fire tactical mortar, deploying your entire spear barrage and returning to high-speed movement before enemy tracking AI can even lock onto your position. Finally, we have 1 tile-forged Crimson Sword for a plus 15% ability duration. This is the exact piece of puzzle work needed to hit our target of 203% duration breakpoint, ensuring our buffs, vortexes, and armor strips remain active without needing to slot heavy high drain mods like Prime Continuity or Narrow-Minded. This is a fully self-contained engine, no energy pads, no generic, just pure mechanical optimization. Now that the engine is built, let's talk about the primary configurations config A, the ultimate double dip ability Nuke. This configuration uses Helmuth Roar over his first ability paired with the core augment Intrepid Stand. To reach our peak 517% strength, we use specific casting sequences. We trigger growing power with status procs, and we grab 50% strength from Parazon as well from Power Drain, and then we have Grimoire or the Velox. You can use whatever, but we use Voam Innovation for this. And then since we have Location Drift, it actually double dips, kind of. It's like 50 ability strength basically. So if you do all of the calculations, you'll get around 500, 400-ish strength, which is more than enough. And when you cast Roar at this power level, it acts as an identical to multiplicative faction damage mods. And when you follow up with the final stand, the initial impact damage of a time single spear is multiplied by this massive Roar percentage. But here is where the hidden game engine math kicks in. Final stand forces a guaranteed slash proc status proc on every single hit. The game engine calculates the damage of a time value of slash bleed proc directly from the initial impact the hit caused it. Because Roar modifies both the initial and the resulting status proc, the math double dips essentially. And the engine multiplies the initial spear damage, generating the bleed value, and then multiplies that bleed value a second time. This scales your force/text into the millions of true flesh damage, effortlessly vaporizing even level cap armored targets. While this destruction is happening, Intrepid Stand is constantly generating thousands of points of overguard per hit. At 517%, your overguard generation and cap are scaled to high that your defensive gate becomes completely unbreakable, and you're entirely immune to knockbacks, staggering status effects, and incoming damage, achieving a flawless state of mobile immortality. So, I have said a bunch of things, but in short, you won't die with this setup. And then another factor to consider when it comes to, Roar and the whole full status proc is your companion, which I will get into a sec. Now, let's say you want to take a break from casting abilities and just want to shoot your weapons. That is what brings us to config B, essentially. We just completely simplify Styanax into a high-speed Gunframe weapon platform. For this setup, we're completely ditching his fourth ability and subsuming Eclipse over the final stand. We're also running two critical augments called Axios Javeniers for grouping and Tharos lethality for a massive melee critical damage boost. The gameplay loop here is beautifully simple, fast and aggressive. You start by encounter by throwing your first ability. Thanks to Axios Javelin's augment, whenever that javelin strikes, it opens a high radius kinetic vortex that drags every enemy in the hallway into a single tightly compressed point. Once the enemies are grouped, you step up and cast Tharos Strike, and because our baseline strength is pushed to the extreme thresholds, a single quick swipe instantly deletes 100% of the armor and shields of every single target in that cluster. The moment that armor vanishes, The Tharos lethality augment triggers, injecting a massive critical damage multiplier directly into your melee weapon. Now, if you look and pair this up with Styanax's native passive ability, his passive grants a massive increase to your firearm's critical chance based on your current shield capacity. Because your Intrepid Stand augment keeps your overguard and shields permanently locked at this maximum value, this weapon critical buff is permanently maxed out. Layer this raw multiplicative weapon damage multiplier of Eclipse right on top of this framework. Since your overguard functions as an independent health gate, you can completely ignore whether Eclipse is providing defensive reductions or not. You are using it primarily in its light-based offense, state to turn standard shotguns, primary rifles, and heavy melee slam attacks into absolute red crit bar shredders, no slow animations, no floating, just pure gun and blade mechanical dominance. If you want to clear entire tile sets without needing line of sight, we look at our secondary module options. Config C replaces his first ability with Wisp's Breeze Surge. It casts Breeze Surge to blind the room, giving enemies a chance to release a homing surge of sparks whenever they take damage. And when you follow up immediately with Final Stand, the massive volume of rapid force / ticks constantly forces the game engine to roll that spawn chance. Because of the resulting spark damage scales with your massive 570% strength multiplier, they hit for millions of damage, tracking enemy heads automatically, vaporizing, hiding enemies behind walls or cover. Is Config D, our highly technical single-target specialist build designed specifically to delete massive health bars like Acolytes, Void Angels, or Archons. We subsume Zara's Whisper over his first ability to infuse our attacks with Void damage, which creates a localized bullet attracting magnet bubble on the boss hitbox. Normally, a spear from Final Stand hits a target once and passes through, but when you cast a Final Stand directly into that void bubble, the physics of the game forces the javelins to turn into a tight orbit, and they completely trap inside the bubble, cycling repeatedly through the boss internal hitbox and forcing multiple instances of impact damage and /procs from a single cast, melting the boss within a few seconds. Finally, Config E brings Jade's subsume ability Ophidian Eyes into the mix over his first ability to create a mobile passive debuff zone. Ophidian Eyes projects as a channeled line-of-sight cone of vision that permanently strips enemy armor and shields while slowing them down to a crawl. By equipping the synergy mod Archon Vitality, we double the heat status proc generated by Ophidian Eyes per interval. This allows us to drop a little bit of ability strength to around 194, and that's completely fine. The passive gaze strips all of the enemy defenses to an absolute zero in milliseconds, allowing you to effortlessly clean up the remaining crowd with a brief cast of Final Stand or a quick few weapon shots. To make sure this entire Spartan chassis operates at absolute peak efficiency, we're utilizing a highly optimized Styanax Prime setup, not for its grouping tool, but purely as a status spreading, cooldown reducing, critical boosting utility engine. We're running a triple bond mod configuration to systematically upgrade Styanax baseline stats. And we have Tenacious Bond that gives us a permanent plus 2.1 damage critical multiplier across all weapons. And we have Reinforced Bond that gives us a permanent plus 60 fire rate injections across all firearms. And we have Guardian that acts as an ultimate automated save net to completely restore Styanax's shield gate to full capacity the exact microsecond your overguard stops. This entire companion loop is powered by Manifold Bond. I kid you not, this is one of the best mods you can get. This mod allows us to reduce your pet or companion's active ability cooldowns by 3 seconds every time you kill an enemy affected by a status condition, meaning any status element. It can be heat, puncture, whatever. But because Styanax is constantly spreading force slash, corrosive and heat procs, Nautilus is constantly resetting his internal timers rapidly to cycle his utility scripts. And we have the companion weapon modded specifically for viral and magnetic, paired up with a fired up mod and contagion bond. And Nautilus will basically coat the entire room in a blanket of status procs that multiply the damage of raw health, shields and overguard. And when an enemy dies, Contagion Bond forces those status conditions to spread to all surrounding targets within a 9-meter radius, with the durations fully refreshed. You're swinging and shooting into crowds and completely stripping them of armor, heavily slowed, carrying a massive damage multipliers. This is the absolute pinnacle of high-level theory crafting. Now, admittedly, of course, you can use any other companion, but for me personally, I prefer this. I generally prefer this more over something like a Panzer Apocrypha, simply because Nautilus Prime can actually help you shield gate better with the Guardian and Manifold as a setup essentially. There you have it, legends. 5 specialized modular combat engine built on top of an unbreakable self-sustaining resource core. No generic templates, no copy-paste setups, just pure mechanical optimization. The full mod layouts, weapon builds and statistic breakdowns are pinned directly in the description box below. If you want to dive deeper into calculations or theorycraft your own builds with over 400 in-game veterans, make sure to hit the link below and join the Academy Discord. If this video helped you understand the underlying math of the game, smash the subscribe button, leave a comment letting me know which configuration are you running first, and share this with your fellow tenor. Stop chasing the copy-paste meta-slop. Start mastering the underlying mechanics. Class is dismissed, and I'll see you in the next time. Peace.